Hey, True Believers. Chris Mack coming at you today with X Factor number 71. And this is an amazing book by Peter David. So I know I've talked about this at length in reviews, but this is such a fun book that I'm glad that I finally got around to reviewing it. Now, this is a second printing, which as you can see here, the background is gold. The first printing is red, but I prefer this gold look. I don't know, I just think it looks a lot better in my personal opinion. And when we jump into this, I love how it says Stanley presents Cutting the Mustard. And then we get this full panel of Strong Guy. You're just kind of like, wow, haha, that is a big dude. Now, before we get into the dialogue, let's talk about who made this book. This is A New Direction, measured to exacting standards by Peter David writer, Larry Stroman penciler, Al Mingram is the inker, Michael Hessler is the letterer, Glynis Oliver is the colorist, Bob Harris the editor, and Tom DeFalco editor-in-chief. So right there, guys, all-star cast of like classic X-Men creators. And this came out in October of 1991. Now Guido, Strong Guy, says, "Excuse me, you got any Grey Poupon?" Now for you younger readers, or newer readers, should I say, in the 90s, there was a commercial where these guys rolled up to this, next to this Royal, kind of like a Rolls Royce at a stoplight, and they kind of give the roll down motion because you used to have to physically roll down your windows instead of pushing a button. And this kind of snooty guy rolls down his window, and these guys look out and they go, "Excuse me, do you have any Grey Poupon?" I think that's how the commercial went. It's been a while. But anyway, that became a running gag through the 90s, and it's satirized in Wayne's World. So yeah, for all you older people like myself, you know what I'm talking about. So I like that they kind of utilized that joke. This was very apt for its time. Now check this out. What I love about Stroman and the art team here is after we get that full panel of Strong Guy, we see Lorna, that's Lorna Dane Polaris, and Strong Guy here kind of in the background. And in the foreground, we kind of, I like all the intricacy of the corridors here. It's really nice, but I like what I think it's Glynis that I said they're doing the coloring. Yeah, Glynis Oliver. I like how she darkens this so that it leads your eye to the dialogue. That is great because it brings focus to what you need to be paying attention to while still being like, hey, that's some really good intricate artwork. But if you think about it, if you colored it like this, and your eye would be all over the place because yellow's more of a drawing color. Now check out this dialogue. Lorna says, "Of course we do. Guido, is it?" Guido, it is. Of course we do. Guido, it is. After all, here at X Factor, we have it all. Armory, vehicles, and of course, Grey Poupon. So tell me, Ms. Dane, is it? Dane it is. Lorna. You're one of those types what babbles when they're nervous? Dane it is, Lorna. So check this out. She says, "Is it that obvious?" And so we see her using her magnetic powers to push the Grey Poupon to Guido. Well, okay, look. The guy they're approaching the head of this whole operation, we have a history, And then we see this is Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, and in the background it goes, "Ugh, stupid mayo jar." So look, it's just like if you think about it, this is just three people sitting at a table talking. You think, oh God, dialogue, this is going to be so boring. But it's not. Because in the midst of this, we are getting brought up to speed on these characters as they get to know each other. And through the use of like nervous dialogue, it's playful. Guido it is, Lorna it is, Dane. So I love that. So, Lorna's talking about how she's nervous to see Alex and how there's nothing wants to keep them apart. And what I like is Guido says, "You want I should hose you two down? That it?" And again, I love how Stroman, just how with that opening splash page, same here where he has the characters, their whole face takes up the panel. It just really helps emote and get a focus on what the characters are feeling and talking about. And she goes, "That's not the problem. Although you might have to." So I like this kind of smirk she gets. And then she says, then again, maybe you won't. Beautiful work. Great work by the art team here. Okay, she says, you see, so much has happened to us. We've been so mucked up in mind and body so many times. How do I know if there's any relationship to go back to, you know? And so we're talking about all the things that happened to them during the Claremont era, because they really were thrown through the grinder. And it's really heartbreaking. Now again, mayo jar. Keep in mind. So we see Madrox trying to open it. He goes, here, help me with this. So, and he punches the thing. So there, we got multiple men. And then Lorna says, can you help with this mayo jar? So we see that, this is supposed to be the strongest guy, one of the strongest dudes in the world. So he's trying to open the mayo jar. Won't open. And then Lorna uses her magnetic powers to pull the mayo jar. She goes, oh, for crying out loud, let me take it. So again, through the use of dialogue of people getting to know each other, we are organically shown their power set. Immediately, we know Guido's a strong guy. We know multiple men. We know Jamie can multiply. We know Lorna has magnetic powers. So I love how there's this plot device that's used as a joke. There's some things about that. Because even Lorna says, I can't open this with my magnetic powers. What is up with this thing? And then we transition to Genosha. And Alex is in charge of putting together a community for mutants here and the fallout of the X-Tinction agenda. And even Bob and Tom here say this story takes place just before X-Men #1. X-Men #1 being the first split X-Men book, because up to here it was just Uncanny. There was Uncanny, New Mutants, and X-Factor. And because it hadn't become X-Force yet. And so that was Jim Lee and Chris Claremont. So this kind of just shows the fallout of the X-Tinction agenda. And again, Alex is talking to Val Cooper, Val Cooper, if you guys remember, she was in charge of Freedom Force. That was Mystique, Pyro, Avalanche, and the Blob. And there was a couple of others, but those were the more predominant ones that I can remember. And Val says, what you're doing here sounds like a ghetto. He's like, you crazy? This is a modern facility. She goes, I didn't mean tenement. I said ghetto, where people historically unwanted have been lumped together. Where's the equal rights in that? And so Alex is getting a little irritated at her. He's like, the X-Men going together under Xavier was being ghettoized. And she's like, I didn't imply it. You inferred it. In other words, you said it. I didn't. Which that's a nice little term that some people need to learn. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not saying that, you're saying it. But anyway, so we're on this construction site. We see this girder start to fall. Rain, this is one reason why I want to go back and read the entire X-Tinction agenda, because I've not read all the books. I just read the ones that ran in succession of X-Men. But I guess Wolfsbane. I always get those two confused. But Rain here, she gets really close to Alex, I guess, during all of this, and I don't know why. That's why I need to go back and read New Mutants and whatnot during this to see how these two kind of got close and such. Now, what I like, Rain tries to save Alex. Val's just standing there like a bump on a log, and you're just like, move, lady, you're going to get killed. But check this out. I love the way they kind of use this Dutch angle, and Stroman and the art team just show the intensity and the scope of Alex's power and how he uses it to save Val. Just awesome, awesome work. And he goes, why didn't you move? Just like how she's covered like, something I like out of a Looney Tune. And he goes, because I wanted to see if when you act from instinct, instead of thinking, you can make the right choice. And that's kind of how Val has always been. She always seems like a very aggravating person, but she knows how to push people sometimes, not all the time, in the right way that they need to be. And with that, we segue to a really cool introduction of a Quicksilver with a Lockjaw, which when the Inhumans are used in X-Men books, I think it's great. But I'm a little tainted on them because of what Marvel tried to do when they tried to get rid of the X-Men because of the whole Fox Marvel Studios thing. And they kept trying to push the Inhumans because they had the rights to them, which it failed miserably, but it kind of left a really bad mark on me. But nonetheless, I try to look back at this stuff, and it's just great, especially the way Quicksilver comes to Washington, and he's trying to find the X Factor facility, and everyone's like, "What are you talking about? There's a bomb threat." He's like, "Get out of here." He's like, "Didn't you hear me? Run." "You want running? I'll show you running." And so he finds this bomb, and they're like, "You lunatic, it's about to blow up. Now that I have your attention, I am seeking X Factor. I heard it was on Embassy Row. That way, a mile west, that way." "Excellent. We'll be there in a flash." "Oh, look at you, stealing Barry Allen's lines." So anyway, what I like is Lorna continues to say that you always do your best work, Alex, when you base it off instinct instead of thinking. When you think, you trip yourself up. And that's exactly what you're doing with trying to join X Factor. So what she does is, since he's not listening to her, she brings in his mentor, which is basically father figure, and his brother. Because right at this point, Cyclops is running X Factor. And so, of course, Rain, being an original New Mutant's excited to see her mentor. And so they go on, and they talk about... Sorry, guys, a moth keeps trying to fly across my face in the middle of this review, and I'm just like, go away! Cyclops and Xavier are trying to say how this is a good position for Alex. They're saying with the fallout of Freedom Force, X Factor would be backed by the president, who has great voter numbers. And this would be a great way to be the face of mutants, publicly. And what I like is Alex says, "Is this what the great dream has come to, Professor? Playing politics? The stakes are far higher than that, Alex. We know what a future of unchecked mutant suspicion can hold." And I think he's referring back to Days of Future Past. "How would you feel if miserable fates befell your brethren? A fate you might have staved off had you not been so self-absorbed." And so Alex trying to say, "Oh, so this all the fate of the mutants falls on my shoulders." But what I like is they say, "You'd be with Lorna," and he goes, "Lorna?" And so that gets his attention. He's like, "Oh, Lorna." And so we cut back to X Factor headquarters, and Quicksilver's talking about, like, there's some stakes that have risen with him. He talks about something going on with his powers. What is it? Read the book. And again, we're back with the mayo jar. And now this is great because Quicksilver says, Madrox, right? What are you doing?" "I was asking Lockjaw what was wrong with you, but he wasn't answering. I know it's hard for him to speak, but..." "Speak." "What's so funny?" "Oh, you've been talking to Ben Grimm, haven't you?" So what I like, again, Looney Tune reference, Lorna says, "Here, Speedy Gonzales, open this mayo jar while I explain." So he's basically saying, it's a joke, Madrox. Gorgon and Karnax utilize Lockjaw's antenna as a high-powered transmitter as a prank on their old friend Ben Grimm. And Grimm, thinking he found a soulmate, apparently swallowed it. "You mean he still hasn't caught on? Oh, for 7's sakes, don't be the one to tell him." So there's a little, I guess, because there for a while they used to say that Lockjaw was a deformed or evolutionized human. So I like that through the use of just casual dialogue that gets retconned to show that Lockjaw is indeed a human. So Alex sees the dossier of his teammates. So he sees that, we know Guido was a former bodyguard of Leela Cheney. And of course, Lorna, the multiple man. And now, again, they go back to talking about Quicksilver, what's going on with his powers, and how there's this villain. And they go, "That's terrible. What would make someone do something like this?" Now, again, one thing that I like about this book is there's like running themes. I like how Guido says, "You ask me, I blame society." So Alex and Lorna are reunited. Now look at the little bit of jealousy here on Range. Goes, And again, they say, "Can you..." Oh, right here. Lorna says, who would do something like this, going back to what's going on with Quicksilver? So, again, I don't want to spoil that. Read the book. And then Alex, just out of the blue, says, "You ask me, I blame society." Again, I love the little running things like that. It just always makes me laugh. And then Quicksilver tells Alex, he goes, "This seems to be the consensus. By the way, I can't get this mayo jar open. I don't think anyone can." And then this seems a little bit like overkill. Alex like, "Oh, really? Get a load of this." And so he uses his plasma blast, and they're like, "Isn't that a bit over?" Now Val's just like, "You knock 3 times, and there, it's open." Now, what's up with this mayo jar? Why is this the thing? Why is Jamie Madrox looking so much like this? Well, might I suggest, my friends, that you all support your local comic shop and pick up a copy of X Factor number 71. Peter David knocked it out of the park. Because, in a lot of newer modern comics, there's a lot where there's a lot of standing and reading. And then, like, the dialogue boxes are like this huge. And then there's a whole lot of talk about food. You're like, phew. But this was done tastefully because it was a way to introduce new readers to a whole new set of teams, team members. Because up to this point, we're used to the original 5 being an X Factor. So David had to take all these new characters, new and old, and kind of reintegrate them into this whole cohesive team and explain why their reasons for being there. And so he did a great job of weeding through this and giving us a great story, raising stakes with certain characters. And I can't wait to go over issue 72 with you guys. This was such an amazing book, and I'm so glad that I have it in my collection. Speaking of which, if you've enjoyed this comic book, please make sure to support your local comic shop and pick it up. At the time of this recording, if we're all still locked up, please call your local comic shop and see if they can do curbside delivery or mail it, or if they can deliver it to you and leave it at your front door in a nice... forget what those boxes, those shipping boxes that are called that keep comic books safe. There's a particular name for them. If I can remember, I'll put it in the comments, or in the what's that stuff called down there, the description. Anyway, and if you've enjoyed this review, we definitely appreciate if you take a minute to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you possibly know, especially since we had to start over. And so we will persevere. So with all that said, I hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading. And happy hunting, true believers.